The old diner buzzed with the low hum of chatter and the smell of frying oil. A jukebox whispered a forgotten tune from the corner while rain tapped softly on the glass. At the counter sat Mrs. Green, silver hair tied neatly, hands trembling slightly as she stirred her coffee. She came here every morning, alone, always at the same seat her husband once loved. Then the door slammed open. 3 local troublemakers walked in, loud, young, full of cheap pride. The leader, a tall guy with a torn jacket, strutted toward the counter. "Well, look who it is," he said, smirking. "The old widow who feeds the pigeons." His friends laughed, too loud for a place that had always been quiet. Mrs. Green looked up, calm but tired. "You boys need manners," she said softly. That only made him grin wider. "Maybe you need to learn when to keep quiet, old lady." Before anyone could move, he reached out and slapped the cup from her hand. It shattered across the floor, coffee splashing over her shoes. The diner went still. A young waitress gasped. "Stop it. She didn't do anything." But the bully just laughed. "Relax, sweetheart. We're just having fun." He leaned close to the old woman's face. "How's life without your husband? Must be lonely, huh?" Mrs. Green's lip quivered. "You should leave," she whispered. The bully stood taller, raising his hand again. But before it could fall, the diner door opened once more. The sound of boots on tile cut through the silence. A man stepped in, leather jacket dripping from the rain, dark beard hiding his jaw. His eyes scanned the room, then landed on her, the old woman trembling beside the spilled coffee. "Mom," he said quietly. The entire diner froze. The bully turned around slowly, his smirk fading as the man walked closer. "This your son?" he muttered, trying to laugh. Mrs. Green didn't answer, but the biker's stare did. He didn't yell. He didn't even blink. He just kept walking until he stood face to face with the boy who dared to touch his mother. "You made her spill her coffee," the biker said softly. The bully swallowed, trying to keep his cool. "Look, man, we were just—" "Pick it up," the biker interrupted. "What?" "I said pick it up." The boy hesitated. The biker's jaw tightened. "You're gonna clean every drop," he said, voice low and cold. "Then you're gonna apologize to her like your life depends on it." The room held its breath. The waitress backed away slowly. The bully's friends were already edging toward the door. "Do it," one whispered. The leader bent down, grabbing a napkin with shaking hands. When he finally looked up, his voice cracked. I'm sorry, ma'am." Mrs. Green stared for a long second, then said softly, "Good boy." But the biker wasn't finished. He leaned closer, his voice a growl only the bully could hear. "If I ever hear you talk to her like that again, you won't walk away." The boy nodded fast, eyes wide. Outside, thunder rumbled again, as if agreeing. The bully backed away slowly, his fake bravado melting into fear. His friends grabbed him by the arm, whispering frantically, "Let's go, man." They pushed through the diner door, the bell jingling as it swung shut behind them. For a moment, only silence remained, the kind of silence that feels like the world is catching its breath. Mrs. Green's hands trembled as she tried to pick up the broken pieces of her cup. Her son, the biker, knelt down beside her, taking the shards gently from her fingers. "Mom," he said softly, "you shouldn't have to clean up after cowards." Her eyes welled with tears. "I didn't know you were back," she whispered. He smiled faintly, his rough voice cracking just a bit. "I didn't plan on it. I was riding through town and figured I'd stop for a coffee. Guess it's good timing." She reached up and touched his cheek, as if to make sure he was really there. "You look tired, Jake." He laughed quietly. "That's what the road does." Then his smile faded. "Did they bother you before?" She hesitated. "Once or twice. But it's all right. They're just boys." "Boys?" he repeated, his tone darkening. "Boys don't hit old women, Mom. That's not youth, that's rot." Before she could answer, the diner door swung open again. The 3 bullies had returned, but this time they weren't laughing. Behind them stood a man older than them, broad shoulders, red face, and a badge clipped to his belt. "You Jake Green?" he asked. Jake turned, calm but alert. "Who's asking?" "I'm Sheriff Collins. These boys say you assaulted them." The diner erupted in murmurs. The waitress stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Assaulted? They hit her." He just stopped them. The sheriff held up a hand. "Ma'am, I'll handle this." His gaze shifted to the old woman. "That true?" Mrs. Green nodded slowly. "My son didn't touch them, Sheriff. They were the ones who—" Jake cut her off softly. "It's okay, Mom. He looked at the sheriff. You know me, Collins. You know Dad. The sheriff's face softened. Yeah, I do. He turned to the boys. You three, outside. Now. They started to protest, but one look from him shut them up. As they left, the sheriff sighed. Jake, you've been gone a long time. Not much has changed, still folks who think kindness is weakness. Jake glanced toward the window where rain was streaking down the glass. Maybe it's time someone reminded them it's not. The sheriff nodded once. You do what you gotta do, son. Just don't start a war. Jake smiled faintly. Wouldn't dream of it. But deep in his eyes, something darker flickered, a promise. Those boys might have walked out tonight, but the lesson wasn't over yet. The rain picked up again that night, hammering against the empty streets as neon lights flickered in puddles. Jake sat alone outside the diner, his leather jacket soaked, cigarette glowing faintly in the dark. He couldn't stop thinking about his mother's trembling hands, the fear in her eyes when that boy raised his arm. He'd seen fear before, but not in her. Never in her. Behind him, the diner door creaked open. The waitress, Mia, stepped out, holding a towel. You'll catch a cold out here, she said softly. Jake smirked without looking back. Wouldn't be the first time. She hesitated, then asked, You're not really gonna go after them, are you? Jake exhaled smoke, eyes narrowing toward the end of the street where the town's only bar glowed faintly through the rain. Depends, he said. If they've learned something tonight. Mia sighed. You remind me of your dad. He had that same look before he did something crazy. Jake smiled faintly. He taught me that sometimes being decent means getting your hands dirty. He stood, flicked the cigarette into the puddle, and started walking. Down at the bar, laughter spilled into the night. The three bullies sat at a table, drinks in hand, trying to laugh the fear away. You see the look on his face? One said. Guy thought he was in a movie or something. The others laughed, but it sounded hollow. Then the door opened. Jake stepped in. The laughter stopped. Even the jukebox skipped a note. He walked toward them slowly, boots echoing against the wet floor. The bartender froze behind the counter, watching carefully. Jake's voice was low but calm. You boys ever hear the saying, respect your elders? The leader swallowed hard. Look, man, we said we're sorry. We don't want trouble. Jake leaned over the table, his shadow falling across their drinks. No, he said quietly. You don't want consequences. Trouble's already here. The leader pushed his chair back, trying to stand, but Jake's hand shot out, gripping his shoulder and forcing him back down. The other two flinched. Jake looked him dead in the eye. You humiliated a woman who lost everything. You think that makes you strong? The boy's voice shook. Please, we didn't mean. Jake slammed his fist into the table, not the boy's face, just close enough to make him jump. The glasses rattled, beer spilling over the edge. You don't get to mean it or not, he growled. You fix what you broke. He let go, straightened up, and looked at all three of them. Tomorrow morning, you'll go to that diner. You'll clean every inch of that place. You'll fix the cup you broke. And you'll treat her like she's your own mother. They nodded fast, trembling. Jake turned toward the door, but before leaving, he said quietly, And if I hear you didn't, we'll have another talk. A longer one. The door shut behind him, leaving silence and three boys staring at their reflections in spilled beer. Back outside, Jake breathed in the cold air, rain running down his face like steam after fire. Somewhere behind him, thunder rolled again, but this time, it sounded almost peaceful. He looked up at the dark sky. Dad, he whispered, guess I still remember what you taught me. Morning light spilled through the clouds, soft and golden, washing the town clean after the storm. The diner's sign flickered back to life, buzzing faintly as Mrs. Green wiped down the counter like she always did. The smell of coffee filled the air, and for the first time in a long while, her hands didn't tremble. The bell above the door jingled, and she looked up, not expecting much. Then she froze. The same three boys from last night stood there, heads down, caps in hand. For a second, no one spoke. The leader took a hesitant step forward. Ma'am, he said quietly, we came to help. To clean. We're sorry for everything. Mrs. Green stared, stunned, then glanced out the window, and there he was. Jake, standing beside his bike, arms crossed, watching from the street. The moment their eyes met, she smiled. He nodded once, a silent promise that she'd never have to face cruelty alone again. The boys worked all morning, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, even repainting the old wooden frame around the door they'd kicked open. The waitress, Mia, kept sneaking glances outside, where Jake leaned against his bike with a cup of coffee, quiet and distant. He didn't need to say a word. His presence was enough. By noon, the diner looked new again, brighter somehow, as if the storm had washed away more than dirt. Mrs. Green brought a pie to the table where the boys sat, their clothes smudged with dust. "Eat," she said gently. "You've earned it." The leader blinked. "You're not mad." She smiled faintly. "Mad? No. My husband used to say forgiveness is how you win without fighting. But I'm proud you showed up today." Outside, Jake finished his coffee and turned to leave. His mother hurried out, wiping her hands on her apron. "You don't even want breakfast?" she teased. He grinned. "Already ate." He started his bike, the engine purring low and steady. "You don't need me here now? You handled it." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "You came home when I needed you. That's what matters." He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "You always told me to ride toward what's right, Mom. Guess I finally listened." As he pulled onto the open road, the roar of his engine echoed down the street. The three boys stepped outside to watch him go, quiet and thoughtful. Mrs. Green smiled through her tears, whispering, "That's my son." And somewhere along the highway, Jake felt the weight lift from his chest, the past, the anger, all of it. For the first time in years, he wasn't running from anything. He was riding toward peace. If this story touched you, share it. Somewhere out there, a mother might be waiting for the moment her child stands up and does what's right. Because sometimes, justice doesn't need noise, it just needs heart. And sometimes, the strongest love doesn't speak, it rides.